Hello, and thank you all for joining us today for this RAIN Sensors, Working Principles, Industrial Use Cases, and Future Directions webinar. Just a few logistics before we begin. We anticipate the presentation will last approximately 45 minutes, allowing us 15 minutes for questions. Please kindly submit using the chat box on the control panel on your screen. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Additionally, the call is being recorded and it will be made available to the public following the close of the presentation. On behalf of the RAIN Alliance, I am pleased to introduce you, Professor Gaetano. I'll turn the webinar over to you now.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and good afternoon and welcome to the guests which are connected from remote. First of all, I wish to thank the RAIN Alliance to have invited us to organize this webinar on a very hot topic, that of RFID sensing. With me, there is Dr. Sara Mendola of Radio Sense that I'm going to introduce in a few minutes, and I'm Gaetano Marrocco, University of Rome Tor Vergata. Why this webinar? We know that identification by RFID is a radar assessed with a growing and dedicated market. Sensing probably will be the next frontier, and today we will try to explore the current status of this still emerging technology with three moments. First of all, I'm going to introduce the basic principle of RFID sensing in a very, very quick way. Then Sarah will show how we can use this technology today, not in the future, today for real case application. And then I will go back to give you a glimpse or new trends in research technology. Then we will have probably 10-15 minutes for discussion. Okay, before starting, to introduce myself a little bit more. I can define myself as an RFID enthusiast and a practitioner since the first hour. In fact, I started working with research with RFID more than 22 years ago. We published a lot of papers, we trained several engineers, and in particular, we founded a company called Radio Sense that tried to transform the output of our research outcome to industrial value. And so today we will mix together science and engineering. Okay, I will not spend words to recall what RFID is, because I assume that all of you have at least a basic knowledge about RFID technology. And today, probably nearly the 99% of applications are related to labeling, where labeling means giving an ID, a name to an object. But now, today, we will talk about sensing. Sensing will be giving a state to an object, say an attribute that could be also a time variable. We have several architecture to provide RFID sensing. We can say that we have an extremely four architecture. Let's start with the first one. The first one, we don't have a sensor at all. We only have an antenna plus a standard RFID microchip that you use for logistics. So it's a standard tag, probably an inlay or plastic tag of a cost of a few cents to a euro, depending on the manufacturing. And how can we get sensor information? Essentially, it will come from the mismatching between the antenna and the IC due to the external environment. Of course, it is low cost, but it is not specific. So we are not able to identify the cause producing a given the specific variation of the response of the antenna. So we have a qualitative output that requires a calibration. There is a variant of this system where the antenna works as a transducer, employing an interacting material. An interacting material could be mechanical or chemical, is something that modifies the antenna response depending on some external stimuli, say humidity, deformation, or other, so that we have a specificity in the identification of the response. We can relate the response of the antenna to a specific stimuli. But what is the background of the using the antenna as a sensor? The background is in this equation, which is called Duchamp equation. I will not enter the equation, but the effect is known to all of you probably. If you take a tag and you attach over a material, and if you interrogate the antenna, the tag, you will have a response, frequency response, for instance, the RSSI. Then if you change the material, you've changed the response. Generally, it has been shifted and attenuated. The shift and the attenuation are related by this equation to the kind of material. So you can dominate this relationship using the antenna as a sensor. How can we do? We can interrogate the antenna, get some useful information like the turn-on power, let's say the activation power to turn on the microchip, the backscatter power, what we call RSSI, or also the phase of the backscatter signal. Then we get this information, we put inside the module producing data inversion, and this module could be experimental driven or machine learning based. And then you obtain an estimation of parameters. So you relate output of the antenna interrogation with the physical parameter. But this system is exposed to the uncertainty due to the presence of the environment, produces scattering, producing unknown effect due to the non-always controllable reader to that position. So we have a certainty that we need to handle in some way. This is a very old example we did probably 15 years ago, probably even more. And you have a powder that was sugar over a cylindrical container with a standard inlay over it. And this is the RSSI. You know, the RSSI, go back now, and I go forward, are linearly and nearly uniformly and monotonically correlated to the level. So it's a basic level sensor without any sensor at all. Then you can use chemical interacting material, this black nick, which is put close to the microchip in this slot antenna. The material is a conductive polymer, PSS, which is sensitive to, for instance, to humidity. In presence of humidity, it changes electrical features, like in particular the resistance and capacitance. And so if we collect the turn-on power of the phase, you see they are really very well correlated to the concentration of humidity. So you can perform a calibration. But you can do more. You can put together many of these with different sensitive material like PDAC, doped PSS, carbon nanotubes, which are sensitive to humidity, ethanol, ammonia, and octane. And so we can perform globally a fingerprinting of a gaseous compound. And then by using machine learning, you can perform classification, so identify the content of the mixture. Then we can move to the second architecture. The second architecture has the benefit to avoid the unknown effect, uncertainty effect of the environment, since it only works to the level of the impedance. This is a standard IC that can be characterized by means of a resistor in parallel in series with a capacitor. It's a static one. But now we have IC with auto-tuning capability, where the internal capacitor can be modified autonomously by the chip in order to compensate possible mismatch with the antenna. So if you have any variation of the external material, like the permittivity, you will have a variation of the antenna response as before, the Duchamp equation, remember. Then the microchip activate, perform auto-tuning, and recover an equilibrium, producing an index n, which is related to the amount of change in the capacitor. So if we perform, we build a calibration curve between the sensor code n and the external permittivity, we have a sensor which is independent on the propagation, only depends on the variation of the antenna impedance. An example also for this, the simplest one, you can place close to the microchip a capacitor with some material sensitive to, also in this case, to humidity. You put everything inside a box with water, humidity increase, and you have an increase of the sensor code, while instead the activation power is stable. So it means that we are not modifying the performance, the communication performance of the antenna. Much more probably fascinating is the next example where we put this sensor on the fingertips on a stretchable material, and then we use the fingertips as a probe of the electrics. And you're able, for instance, to recognize if you have a container filled of oil. You see here, filled by, the second one is alcohol, and the third one is Vanguard. This is because all these three liquids has different permittivity, so they mismatch differently the antenna, and the microchip retune in a different way. Third architecture is an IC with embedded sensor capability. The most common is the temperature, which is based on a nonlinear effect of an internal diode. So you have a junction. If you measure the voltage across this junction corresponding to a stable forward polarization current, this voltage is linearly related to the temperature inside. So if you perform a two-point calibration, you could get the temperature. Generally, chips comes calibrated by manufacturers. They are a few affected by the strength of the interrogation signal, but they can be compensated with a power-based algorithm that we did. You can do anything with this kind of sensor. This is an example of probing inside a concrete. So you have a probe with the sensor here, then we have the antenna outside, and you can measure the temperature variation during the maturation of the concrete. That takes about 28 days, but can be accelerated with the oven. So you see a very high correlation with the thermocouple. Okay, this is the last family. The last family is the IC with analog to digital converters. They are very powerful because they are provided with a port, and you can connect to this port an external sensor like humidity, temperature, rather, and they discretize this data and store inside the memory. Then you can read. In some cases, these kind of chips are also provided with a port for a battery, and they can work as a data logger. Two examples of flexible device. On the left, we have a flexible sensor with an external high temperature thermocouple for the measurement of the temperature in brakes of cars. And on the right, we have another Kapton-based sensor, also in this case with a battery too, with an external moisture sensor to analyze, for instance, the liquids material. Okay, I could talk about sensor for hours, but for today is enough. I would like to sum up what we have introduced by this ideogram, visual gram. I have put here most of the existing IC. I apologize if I have for sure forgotten some of them, but more or less they are the most important families. From the left to the right, you have an increasing complexity. Here you have antenna as a sensor, antenna plus interacting material, auto-tuning, sensor on chip, and ADC. And what you can see that when you move from bottom to up, you are increasing the specificity. It means that if you have an antenna as a sensor, the sensing is really qualitative. You could have just a few levels, the quality of a food, the filling percentage of a bottle, rather. But if you move towards sensor on chip, you could be very quantitative, very specific. Of course, you need to pay this with an increased power consumption. That means a shorter read distance. But then there is another very important point, the point of intelligence. You need intelligence to get sensor information from a tag. Like if you have a very simple antenna as a sensor like displays, all the information required to get the data is at the reader side. Okay, the reader and computer side, of course. The tech is very stupid. But as you move towards a more complex device, the intelligence is moving down to the sensor that will become a kind of an edge sensor, an edge computer far from in the extremely part of the network. What can we do in 2025? We can say that in terms of technology readiness level, temperature is really, really mature. You can buy and use. Also, we had very interesting experience with the humidity and strain, and then go down to more, experimental case, not because the product are not ready, but probably the exploitation with case studies need probably more effort. Then you have volatile compounds and wet chemical that are still in the research lab. Okay, I have concluded this introductory part with basic principle of sensors. And so now I will introduce Sara Mendola for the second part of this webinar concerning industrial application. Let's say what we can do with what you can buy on the market. Please, Sara, which is the CEO of RadioSense, please, Sara, get the screen and introduce yourself. Sara, are you able to get the screen?
Not yet, Gaetano. You need to stop sharing.
Okay, eccolo qua. Because I have two videos. Well,
Okay.
ball is to you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, hi everybody. I am Sara Mendola, and thanks Gaetano for the introduction, and thanks for introducing the fundamental principle of the RAIN sensor. I think that this really set the audience for this second part of the webinar. I am the CEO of RadioSense, that is an innovative company founded in 2013 as a spin-off of the research group headed by Professor Gaetano Marrocco. As a university spin-off, we have inherited naturally all the long history of pioneering research in the RAIN sensing. But as a company, we are really committed to turn this deep technical expertise into industrial value. We operate basically as an engineering company, developing a high-end solution that exploit the RAIN sensor networks for our customer across many markets, ranging from the automotive to the healthcare and manufacturing field. And as a member of the RAIN Alliance, our vision is to boost the adoption of the RAIN sensing technology and to create a global competence center for the RAIN sensors. So before diving into the real use case, I would like to take a moment to focus on what are the industrial applications where a RAIN sensor has really the potential to make a disruptive impact. There are, in my opinion, at least two main scenarios. The first one, it is at the small scale, when there is the need for measuring some parameter at item level from within an object itself. So in that case, wired sensor, battery powered, or solution with complex electronic simply cannot fit, while RAIN sensor, being batteryless and with very simple electronic, can be seamlessly integrated into the object, bringing the wireless capability and the sensing capability down to unprecedented points. And this approach can make the difference, especially when monitoring rotating, movable object and part operating in harsh environment. Then on the opposite side of the spectrum, there are large-scale industrial systems. Here, the demand is to monitor hundreds, even thousands of points, sometimes simultaneously. And we need the low-cost, maintenance-free sensor that can be easily reconfigured. And again, the RAIN approach, thanks to the versatility and scalability, can offer a unique solution. In this slide, there is at a glance an overview of things that over the years we have empowered by means of RAIN sensor, sorted by size, ranging from small-scale devices on the left to large-scale industrial system on the right. We have designed sensor for empowering implantable medical device, especially prosthesis and fixator, medical consumable like plaster, dressings, pharma packages, and also food packages. We have sensorized metal components such as screw, bearing, nozzle, rubber product like tires and composite materials, interconnecting vehicles, up to deploying RAIN sensing network for the predictive maintenance of industrial plant in the chemical, electrical, and infrastructure sector. However, whether embedded into an object or distributed across a large system, RAIN sensors are only the first meter of an IoT complete solution, as they enable the data generation at the physical level. But then, to transform this data into actionable insight, it is essential, first of all, to transfer this data from the physical layer in a secure way up to the upper decision layer. And we need to use a standard industrial protocol such as Modbus, CAN-bus, OPC UA, and so on. That means that RAIN reader must act as industrial IoT gateway. And then once these data are available at the upper decision layer, here we have advanced analytics and the AI tool where the data are processed to extract patterns and finally support data-driven decision. But now let's start with the real use case. We will start with the automotive sector, in particular with the Formula One, which is definitely a high-tech and demanding industry. This application was developed for the major Italian F1 racing team, and the target was a critical component of the power unit, that is the motor generator unit, the kinetic unit. This component recovers the kinetic energy during the car braking, convert the energy into electrical energy that is stored in the battery and later redeployed to boost the acceleration of the car. So it's a really important component. Inside the MG UK, there is a couplet of bearings that operate under really extreme conditions due to the high temperature, mechanical stress, and also electrical stress. So monitoring in real time these bearings is essential to prevent their premature failure. RAIN sensors are promising to overcome the limitation of a wired sensor and also of infrared solution that require a clear line of sight with the point of measurement that cannot be guaranteed in this case. However, we need to consider that bearings are inside a closed metal cavity with a lot of space constraint. The components are rotating, vibrating, and we are inside an electrical motor. So we should expect also some issue in terms of noise and interference. To address this challenge, we have developed a custom solution that consists basically of a transmitter antenna that is designed to fit inside the motor shell in a fixed position of the lateral side, and a seed pole tag that integrate an IC with built-in temperature sensor. And this tag is suitable to be placed over the bearing oil seal, and it is free to rotate. This architecture guarantees the robust wireless communication. It is unaffected by the rotation, and mostly important, the system did not interfere with the car electronics and vice versa. A very important key requirement for this application was the integration of a RAIN reader, in this case a reader from Catrine Solution, by using the Canvas protocol. In this way, we can assure the seamless streaming of the temperature data directly into the car telemetry dashboard. But probably the true value of this solution becomes more evident from the results of a crucial test on a bench. In this plot, you can see the blue curve represents the car speed over multiple laps of a racing track. Then we have the black curve. It's the ideal point of measure. Here is captured by an infrared sensor, but this can be only installed on a bench if the shaft is not inserted into the motor. So this sensor is not suitable for the overall motor assembly test. And finally, we have the red curve that shows the temperature measured by the RAIN sensor on the bearing. And we can see that this trend is clearly correlated with the target ideal profile. Well, this picture represents the normal behavior that is expected for a healthy bearing, while this is the corresponding profile for a damaged bearing. So what's striking? You can see clearly that thermocouple sensor, that is the flat curve, that are the golden standard at the moment, can only be installed in position where they fail to detect the early sign of a failure. While a RAIN sensor can clearly distinguish between healthy and damaged bearing, allowing the prompt identification of irregularities before they escalate. Since we are in Formula One and of course every millisecond counts, this can decide also the outcome of a race. Well, this is a fascinating yet a niche example for F1, but if you think of bearings as one of the most widely used components, the same solution can be easily extended and transferred to a wide range of industry and application, including aerospace, railway, wind energy, and so on. So let's move to the second example. Staying in the automotive industry, the second story shifts the focus to industrial vehicles, such as excavators, tractor, and ski loader. Since these vehicles operate in a very severe and harsh component, the roller of the undercarriage can be subjected to very important mechanical stress. So monitoring this roller is crucial to prevent their failure, but also to optimize the maintenance strategies of this component. So our customer, that is Berco, a company part of the ThyssenKrupp, was looking for a technology, for a solution to measure the internal core temperature of the roller during the real-time operation of the vehicle. So it was quite challenging because we need to reach the core of this component that is, of course, rotating during the operation, and a big vehicle can have up to 20 rollers installed. So to address this need, we ended up with the idea of exploiting this structural screw, that is the screw that is used to fix the roller to the undercarriage, as a sensor. So we sensorized the screw and with the idea of using this component as a temperature probe. For this purpose, we designed a T-shaped RAIN sensor having the measurement point at the bottom of the screw to reach the core of the roller, while the antenna was placed at the top part of the screw to facilitate the wireless communication. And of course, finally protected with a cap to ensure its durability. What is relevant is that the solution permits the monitoring of the product, that is the roller in this case, throughout its life cycle. In fact, starting from the R&D, the developing and the testing phase, we can monitor single roller on a bench during the testing session, but also when it is in real condition, when it is installed in the vehicle. In fact, we can install on a vehicle the entire system that you can see here in this picture, where we have a reader and a control unit installed on the vehicle roof, reader antenna mounted on both lateral side of the vehicle to achieve the robust interrogation of each sensor insert into each roller of the vehicle. And as you can see, this short and noisy video, this is a pilot example of the installation of the system demonstrating the feasibility to collect the real-time data from each roller. So we have generated basically a new source of data that can really improve the maintenance strategy and extend the lifespan of this component. So with the third story, we move to the pharma industry. It is well known that physical parameters such as temperature and relative humidity can significantly impact on the degradation, the efficiency, the efficacy, and finally the safety of the pharmaceutical. So monitoring this parameter is essential to ensure the integrity of drugs. We have been approached by the Pfizer Analytical Department in UK with a specific request. They asked, can we precisely monitor the microenvironment inside each package during the testing phase without the need of opening the container? So in response, we have designed a miniature sensor resembling a pharmaceutical pill that can be inserted into any kind of packages into the smallest one and is able to measure the microenvironment inside the sealed package and transmit this data to an external reader. Basically, the sensor consists of a miniature antenna of a new generation of microchip provided by Assign, which embed both temperature and humidity sensor and a protective case made of a special material with low water absorption rate. The performance of this sensor has been extensively validated both in the lab and in real scenarios, demonstrating an accuracy that really meets the target requirement of the pharma industry, particularly for the humidity, where the accuracy was within the ±3% across the entire measurement range. So this solution is valuable during the late stage development of new drugs, where the possibility of collecting data at item level, at package level, is very critical for stability studies, packaging selection, and also for validating the storage condition. In this picture, you have an outline of the operative scenario. We are inside a lab where the scientists need to monitor hundreds of bottles simultaneously, both on bench and inside the stability chamber. So the RFID platform include interoperable read points, both mobile, handheld, and fixed reader that manage multiple antennas both on the workbench in a smart shelf configuration and inside the stability chamber. And in this picture, I just want to share some snapshot taken at the Pfizer lab showing the pilot installation of this solution. More information about this story are available on the RAIN Alliance webpage, where you can find an article and an infographic as a result of our activity in the healthcare working group. So finally, currently, one of the biggest challenges in the pharmaceutical packaging industry is definitely sustainability. Many pharma companies are working on developing a new generation of blisters that are made of fully recyclable monomaterial package made of plastic, which basically eliminate the aluminum. So to address this new need, we are further miniaturizing the sensor to bring the sensing capability down to the size of a single blister. And in this picture, there is a preview of the upcoming miniature sensor that is capable of detecting micro leakages in sealed blisters during the quality assessment stage. So with the next application, we are moving to industrial manufacturing and towards the large-scale application, if you remember the first scenarios. Here, the target equipment is a filter press machine that processes silica powder inside a chemical plant of the Solvay group in Italy. This is a quite old production site, so the aging machine is often subjected to failure that can cause severe damages up to the complete shutdown of the production. So operators with some sporadic check with the thermocameras revealed that over this tube, anomalous flow of hot fluid could be a predictor of malfunctioning, early prediction of malfunctioning of the machinery. So there is a need to, first of all, univocally identify all these tubes. In each machinery, there are hundreds of tubes that can be considered a consumable part of the machinery, and most of all, to monitor the temperature of all these tubes in real time, 24 hours, 7 days. So the target, the goal is to early detect the first membrane failure to prevent the full-scale production shutdown. So we can imagine to distribute sensor over the machine to achieve this fine monitoring. However, the operational site, as you can see from this picture, is very hostile from an electromagnetic point of view. There is the strong presence of metal, liquid, vapor, RF noise. We have a multitude of sensors, more than 150 points of measurement distributed over a large area, so also achieving the reading coverage is not trivial. And sensor must withstand the highly corrosive environment. We started from designing the hardware layer of the solution that here consists of a redundant system of multiple array that ensure the robust radio coverage of the entire machine. Then we have a flexible temperature sensor that can be applied to each tube by using simple plastic ties. And this is an important point, since the installation of the system, the physical layer, did not require any modification, nor downtime of the production. And this means that the solution is not only suitable for new machinery, but it can be also retrofitted in a transparent way to old plant where legacy equipment are still widely used. So from the physical layer, the temperature data are streamed to a central control unit by using the OPC UA protocol that is a standard for the industrial Internet of Things. And from there, the data are stored in time series in a database, and then we have AI-driven analytics that continuously process the data to detect anomalies. And here you can see an example of the user-friendly real-time dashboard, which tracks the temperature evolution over each tube over the time, where you can see clearly correlation between temperature patterns and operational phases of the machinery. And this in the bottom part, we have a two-dimensional time variant heat map that permit to easily detect the hotspot in case of anomalies. So this system was deployed in March 2021 and has been operational ever since, and has permit to avoid several occurrences of failure. So last but not least, an example from the food industry, specifically regarding the monitoring of tropical fruit ripeness. So many of you have probably experienced the common dilemma in a grocery store where you wonder if an avocado is ready to eat or not. So you should know that in Europe, especially, tropical fruit arrived in a very unripe stage. Then they are stored inside this large climate control chamber, and the fruit then undergoes to a forced ripening process using temperature and ethylene exposure. And currently, there is no standard method to decide when it is the proper time to exit the fruit from this chamber, apart from destructive test based on penetrometer that it can be only applied on a sample basis with significant food waste and financial losses. So to address this need, we develop a solution that exploit the principle of antenna as a sensors that was previously introduced by Professor Marrocco. So the rationale is quite simple. As the fruit ripens over the time, its chemical and physical properties change, particularly due to the variation in the sugar and in the water content. If we place a normal tag with no sensor in the close proximity of the fruit, could be on the peel or inside the packaging, it will act as a transducer, capturing this change. And in fact, this is an example of many electromagnetic parameters that can be measured in addition to the APC by using a standard RAIN reader. All these parameters together form a unique electromagnetic fingerprint of the ripening process, as you can see from this colored curve that show a clear correlation and evolution with the time. However, this is, let's say, a lucky example of good measurement, but in real scenarios, this correlation is not so straightforward, so it requires advanced algorithm to transform this data into high-level information about the ripeness of the fruit. But for practically implementing this approach, we have designed a modular trolley system that can hold more than 100 fruits. It consists of multiple shelves equipped with more than 30 reader antenna, and then there is a central unit, including the reader, a multiplexer, and a control unit. The trolley basically is the physical layer. It is placed inside the ripening chamber, collect the data, and send this data during the maturation to the cloud. Once we are in the cloud, there is an AI engine that converts this data into high-level information, determining the maturity level of the fruit. And then at the application level, we have a user-friendly interface to inform the operators about the status, and also the generation of automatic notification via Telegram to inform the operators about the status of the fruit batch. And this solution has been validated through pilot installation in France and UK in collaboration with Westphalia, that is a leading multinational supplier of fresh fruit, and ILPA Group, that is a major packaging company in Italy. Results are very promising, demonstrating that the system can reduce the waste, optimize the ripening process, and at the end enhance the overall supply chain efficiency. So this is my last story. So now I will give the floor again to Professor Gaetano, that will inspire us with the latest direction and trend of his research on RAIN sensors. So please, Gaetano.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I will share my screen again. Okay. Do you see anything? No, not yet. Yes, you should see. Can you see my screen? Sarah, can you see?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Okay. So in the last 10 minutes probably of this webinar, I will try to give you a glimpse of future application that we are now experimenting in our labs. And I have four. The first one concerns epidermal-like sensor. Let's say device, soft, stretchable, that can be applied over the skin, like a second skin. And they are provided with an antenna, a sensor, to get pH, biopotential, cortisol, or other chemical material inside sweat. And then, of course, there will be a microchip to get data and to perform backscattering. In some cases, also, the membrane can be functionalized to release medication, depending on the specific measurement we have done over the antenna. So we have sensing, communication, and feedback in a very small device. We are making experimentation with several technologies to fabricate these materials concerning the membrane, concerning the kind of conductors. But I will show you just one because it put together many interesting concepts. So this is an epidermal pH sensor that make use of an auto-tuning IC. So you have a chemical pH sensor that when put in touch with the liquid with a given pH, produce a voltage. This voltage polarize a varactor. The varactor induce a value of capacitance. And this capacitance is put in parallel between the antenna and the IC, so that we are mismatching the interaction between the antenna and the IC. The IC produce auto-tuning and generate sensor code. So sensor code can be related to the pH. This is the prototype made by tissue-non-tissue plaster and soft silicone for application comfortably over the skin. And this is the replaceable chemical sensor that is inkjet printed. Okay, we need to calibrate, of course, as I told you. So calibration can be done by liquids with known pH. And so for any deposition of liquids, we can measure the sensor code. And then we have the calibration, very, very accurate. That means several units of sensor code for unitary variation of pH. A possible application to the healthcare is for the wound care, because wound during the healing process produce a change of the pH. Well, the second example of new application is for cyberprosthesis. What is cyberprosthesis? We know that we will have along our years high possibility to have implanted devices, starting from a tooth up to a more complex orthopedic prosthesis and unfortunately even more. But implantation is not the end of the story, because an implanted device can produce infections, can be broken, can be dislocated or other. And this is very difficult now to monitor from the outside in not invasive way what is happening inside. So we have a possible solution. The solution is to include inside the standard prosthesis an RFID sensor, which is batteryless, so can stay for years without any maintenance. We made many experiments in my lab. I will show the example of a bone fixing plate. It's a standard plate with holes. These holes are engaged by screws that are used to fix the broken bones, but we have generally some unused holes. From the perspective of an antenna designer, this plate is a dipole, so it's capable to collect energy from the outside if we make a standard interrogation by an RFID reader. And what we need to do is concentrate this induced current toward a place where we have a sensor. How can we do? We don't introduce an antenna at all. We use this metal like an antenna. And what we can do is just to design a plug-in capsule that we can put like a cap inside an unused hole. And over this cap, we have our RFID sensor. And then we have some mechanism for changing impedance. I will skip this part. But in this case, we are able to concentrate energy and to activate the sensor and get the temperature in this point. If you have more than a single unused hole, you can place multiple plug-in caps. So you would have a distributed temperature sensor. And this works. This is an experiment with a mock-up of the plate with a true bone with a muscle emulating phantom, and we are able to read information from a distance of up 30 centimeters from the outside with a regular reader, and we get an accurate measurement of the temperature in comparison with thermocouple. Here we emulate a fever due to the infection. Third experiment concerned the graphene. Why graphene? Graphene is a wonderful material with exceptional features. It's a conductor, can be functionalized with receptors, so it also become a specific sensors, and is abundant in nature, but unfortunately is not easy to produce in mass scale. More or less 10 years ago, a group in US invented a new technology called laser-induced graphene. Say, using laser to generate graphene starting from a precursor. A precursor is a substrate generally rich of carbon, typically a polymer, that is engraved by a laser. When you give energy to the molecules, generally the molecules start to oscillate, to vibrate, and so by mechanical effect, the molecule is broken. We have the carbon atoms that reorganize into structure like the graphene, like hexagon, pentagon, and also even square. And then we have also additional material that are free by evaporation. Some remain here. So we have a trace. This trace is made by graphene, and not as good as a standard graphene, but very easy to fabricate. And most important, this is a conductor without conductor. So you can fabricate a complex device without any conductor. Typical behavior of a graphene flakes that you can modify completely in terms of morphology and in terms of conductivity, so that you can do many things. This is our example for sensor. The black one is a dipole. Here we have a chip capable to drive an external sensor. It's like a capacitor here. The capacitor is made by a different, say, laser setting. So it's capable to bond with a chemical interacting material like PEGDA, put by casting, and this system will become sensitive to triethylamine, which is a compound, volatile compound, which is generated by food spoilage, especially in the case of meat, and even more for fish. So you can evaluate the gaseous compound inside by using a machine learning technology. But what is most important is that, in principle, you could imagine to engrave directly the packaging without adding anything. And so this packaging becomes very easy to recycle because we don't have plastic at all. Or even if, should we have plastic, we don't have plastic and metal, but just plastic. So it's very interesting for eco-friendly application. Last trend is completely different, and it's a little bit visionary. It's concerned flying sensor. What is flying sensor? Means making sensing ubiquitous by loading small copters with RFID loggers to put on every place. I have a short video to show the idea and the possible scenario that I'm going to start, and then we will comment at the end. Okay, why this could be useful? Because we can avoid using onboard sensor in order to have energy independence from the source of the drone, which is very, very small. We can get information, even if the drone fails, we could swap different sensors and use conventional copters, adding the sensor we need. Okay, we are at the end of this webinar, and it's time to draw some conclusion, some take-home messages from the research side. My opinion, sensor technology is moving fast from research to industrial application. I don't like to call tags this device anymore because they are much more complex. They are nodes for IoT. Probably rain sensor could be a better node. Then there is a lot of attention to smart material. Research is exploring new material which are multi-functioning, which are eco-friendly, and are suitable to biointegration with the skin and inside the human body. We expect a lot of growth to healthcare application, and I anticipate you that we are organizing a webinar on healthcare in the next month. And then there is also a lot of attention to mixing together artificial intelligence and physical-based models in order to boost the versatility, the reliability of sensing by including large-scale processing. So this is research. And Sarah, what's about industry side?
Okay, what I can say. So we are, of course, still in the early stage of the adoption of rain sensing technology, even if for many applications the technology is very mature for industrial use case, as we have seen throughout my presentation. And we have many pilot projects underway with big customers that are big players in the industry, and here you can recognize some famous names. So this customer can serve as a strong reference point to boost the adoption of the sensing technology. Then we can see rain sensors also as an opportunity, basically for all the stakeholders of the rain community that can really unlock new application and permit the technology to establish as a standard in a new market. It's an opportunity for tag manufacturers. As Gaetano said, rain sensor are high value and adding value device that are comparable with the IoT node. They're not competing with volume and price of retail label. For reader manufacturer, because usually sensor network require many more readers compared to standard gate-like installation. For system integrators or solution provider like us is of course an opportunity because there is a lot of work ahead to do to develop a new solution in the industrial IoT sector. And finally, for end user, we saw that rain sensor can unlock measurement and enable measurement where today is now rather impossible with other technology. So this will definitely enhance in the future data-driven decision. It will permit to build a digital twin more accurate and finally improve predictive maintenance strategies.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. We are really at the end. Thank you for listening. If you are curious about our scientific and industrial activities, here we have the QR code of our website. In the lab, Pervasive Lab, you can find many papers, videos, pictures, ideas. In Radio Sense, you can find some other concerning essentially case study. So thank you again. We are here available for questions and answers.
Thanks both. That was a wonderful presentation. We do have a few questions. I can start it out about, you mentioned some automotive use cases. Is there today censorship compliant with automotive standard? Same for reader in case of onboard applications.
So thanks for this question. I think this is for my part of the presentation. So, well, a reader for automotive application. We have seen application of reader installed on a vehicle. I think that from technical point of view, there are many readers available on the market that can target the technical need for the automotive standard, also with a few modifications, mostly related with the data interface protocol. In many cases, application demand Canvas, that is a very widely adopted protocol. And this is something that can be implemented on a reader control unit or with simple, let's say, external converter. For normal passenger car, in my opinion, probably the bottleneck could be the cost of the reader at the moment, but only because we are probably missing the killer application that can boost the number of the readers. So if there is a real business case to install a reader on board to many vehicles, I think that it is definitely possible to have reader compliant with in-vehicle application.
Thank you, Sarah. Another question. RAIN is specifically UHF. Some of your applications require very small objects. Are you also using higher frequencies?
Gaetano?
But generally we work with, we have had some experience with high frequency, especially for point of care application, where you need to use a mobile phone to get data because the application is at the level of the final user. And when you need a lot of energy to energize the chip that needs to produce to make a complex data acquisition and analysis. In that case, probably HF is useful, especially as I told you in point of care. Let's say point of care are devices that you can place over the body, like that I show you, or external device that perform a lab of on-tag analysis of blood, of saliva, or sweat or other. In most of the cases, in our experience, we need to customize also the antenna shape because of the specific boundary condition, materials or metals, and you cannot use essentially HF because you don't have the required flexibility in the design of the device.
Thank you. Another question. I know we're a little bit over, so if you guys can stay, we can answer these last two questions. You're integrating several fields of knowledge. How big is your group, and do you work with other universities?
Okay, as I told you, we started with myself 22 years ago. I was alone at the beginning. Then I trained a lot of PhD students. Now some of them are in other companies, some of them are in the university, like colleagues, and some of them are the spin-off. So we overall are a group of more or less 20 persons, mostly in the company, and probably 10, close to 10 in the university. Yes, we have collaborated. We need collaboration because as probably you have understood, is a fully multidisciplinary field. So I'm a professor of electromagnetics, so I'm an expert on antennas design or other, but it's not enough because materials are dominant. So we established a collaboration with materials, mechanicals. In most of the cases, we have moving objects, so we have collaboration with the mechanical engineer, professor of mechanics in my university. Now there is the opportunity of artificial intelligence. So also for machine learning, we established a collaboration. But also probably we need to extend even more to, for instance, chemistry. As we are working deeply with chemical sensor, we have a very nice collaboration in my university with the chemical teams, very cute. And in the future, we should expand also probably to economy, to say analyzing the sustainability and also the economic impact of our solution. Because in many times when we collaborate with a company, a critical point at the end of proof of concept is to understand the value of the innovation inside their market. So also in this case, collaboration are welcome. I can say that we are really open to share knowledge, to establish collaboration, to get challenge, solve challenge, and also to use challenge to stimulate new research. It is a positive feedback. We enter in the market, we offer our knowledge, but we also get in turn new ideas that stimulate research, and the feedback continues.
Thank you. Last question. On the antenna sensor applications, have you used multiple antennas in a single tag, some as sensors and some as non-sensor?
Sorry, multiple antennas on a single tag? I missed the last part.
Some as sensors and some as non-sensor.
So maybe I can respond thinking to the last example of the fruit ripening. In that case, we are using the antenna as a sensor. We are not using calibration reference antenna in that case, because the calibration is a well-known data set whose ripening stage is well-known. But what John is suggesting, so using a couplet of tag one as a sensor and the other one to remove the uncertainties of the external environment is definitely a viable and needed approach in many cases.
Thanks, Sarah. Well, I think that's all the questions we have for now. We did receive a few questions asking if this webinar will be available to the public, which it will be. It will be available on the RAIN Alliance website within 1 business day. But I wanted just to thank you both for joining us today. And if you have any other questions, you can reach out to our presenters. But other than that, thanks again both, and have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you again
Bye.
for inviting us.
Bye.
Thanks for this opportunity. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.